the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for this day.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast as we get back to the proper stuff after the international break. And first up, we entertain Alex Neil's Millwall at the Stadium of Light. So to help us catch up with all things Millwall, we have the pleasure of someone who covers Millwall for the South London Press as well as on that Millwall podcast, which is a tongue teaser apparently, which is of course Alex Grace. Hello Alex.
Hello, you okay?
Yeah, good, thanks. Welcome to the podcast. Mentioned the international break there. Have you enjoyed it? Or boring?
God,
or what?
aren't they awful? Aren't they awful? Oh, it's like, I find it so hard to get into it. I mean, look, we're obviously going to qualify for all the tournaments, but it's funny because teams, people come and say, don't they, you should be beating these teams 6-7-0, but those days, I think those days are gone because they're a lot fitter now than what they used to be. They hold their shape and, they sit 11 men behind the ball. It's not as easy as it looks to break those teams down.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I mean, I'm glad you've said that, Alex, in your accent, if that makes sense, because there was a big debate on about TalkSport the other day, and they were talking about the international kind of club football divide, and they were saying there's this north-south thing, especially with the Scousers and stuff, and they were talking about the northeast. But it's reassuring that it's the same for you, because I mean, I have to admit that I think it was Friday night's game. I completely forgot they were playing.
Oh, I know. Yeah, 100%. I think I said it to my dad actually, and he said to me, "Oh yeah, I completely forgot that they were playing."
Yeah. Well, I mean, back to the club football. I mean, in terms of you covering Millwall, I saw that you do cover other clubs as well. But has it always been mainly Millwall, and kind of you've always followed Millwall as a fan?
Yeah. I mean, I started covering Millwall. Oh God, I think about 8 years ago now. Yeah, this is their 8th season up in the Championship. So yeah, 8 years ago. I've done a few other clubs. I do Bromley sometimes, Wimbledon, Charlton sometimes. Depends where I'm needed. So it can depend, but the majority of the time it's usually Millwall. Yeah.
So as a fan, how far do you go back with Millwall?
How old am I? I'm 27. So 27 years.
So I mean, obviously, kind of not as far back as those glory days with Cascarino and Sheringham and First Division football, but I mean,
a bit before my time. That one.
Yeah, I mean, but do people still hark back to those days? Because I mean, it's a long time. What, 35 years since you're in the top flight?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, 35 years. Yeah, so it's a long old time. I mean, people remember those times quite fondly. I mean, funny enough, the the manager that took them up to that level, John Docherty, died earlier this year. So yeah, he was remembered. I think it was a New Year. Was it New Year's Day game? I can't remember now. But he was remembered ahead of that game, and they had all the old the team from that year that got promoted. You know, and they still get a very fond welcome down at the Den, as you would expect. You know, the team that was First Division football, it's a long old time ago.
Yeah.
Came very close to getting there or having a chance of getting there a couple of years ago, but managed to hand Sunderland a place in the playoffs instead of ourselves blowing it against Blackburn. Yeah. A crazy second half that was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've already said 8th season in the Championship, and other than, I was looking at the like league placings, and other than one season where they finished 21st, they finished between 8th and 13th. So, I mean, obviously you mentioned that season where they got really close, but where do Millwall stand in terms of kind of size and ambition? Because obviously from us looking from the north, we can just see how many big clubs that they're surrounded by in London.
Oh, of course. It's difficult because I mean, if you look at a lot of clubs in London now, I think there's 8 London teams in the Premier League now.
Yeah.
You know, and then you look around London, I mean, Charlton possibly coming up to the Championship next year. You've got QPR as well. So I think you've got a lot of clubs in and around London. Obviously, a lot of them have much bigger budgets than we do. But yeah, I mean, look, the club's ambition obviously is to get to the Premier League. I think that's the ambition of every Championship club, isn't it? At some stage to reach the pinnacle, if you like, of English football by getting into the top league. I mean, it's the rewards now that you get for a season up there is mad. You know, but then you can see, you know, with the likes that's happened to Luton, you know, it can be catastrophic having one season up there and then look at what can happen to you the next year. So, no, listen, the ambition will be to get there. I think the fans would love it to happen for the ownership. Obviously, John's dream was that the club got to the Premier League under his leadership, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. He tragically died, but his son leading the club now and doing things slightly different than what John did it, in terms of the model now and bringing in sort of younger players to sell on for a profit, bit like maybe a Brentford type model. But yeah, that's definitely the ambition of the club to do. I mean, they've been in and around it for a number of years. You know, I think obviously last year was a bit of a bit of a step back year off. It was a bit of a tumultuous year, wasn't it? You know, after the stability of John, then John passing that summer, Gary leaving the club, and then obviously the Joe Edwards experiment didn't quite go to plan. So, yeah, I think it's getting back on track now. The club have got their plan and they've got a head coach that they feel will fit that model.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just you talked about the ambition there, but with those kind of league placings, because obviously you've mentioned how quickly it can start going wrong and you can slip the other way. And Millwall have spent a few seasons in League One, like we have in the past. I mean, so where is the expectation for Millwall fans? I mean, are they thinking the club should be pushing for that top six, or are they thinking, well, actually, we're kind of where we should be in the league, and maybe we can, with a couple of decent signings, make a push for it?
Yeah, I think if you look at the squad they got now, you give that squad time to gel. I mean, they made 8 permanent signings in January, so you know you've got to let them gel. And there is a real chance that they could push next year. I think everyone this year was thinking, right, after last year, where we had a really good end, but it was a real panic there at one stage last season that we could be playing League One football. So yeah, listen, I think this year around, I think anywhere between 10th and 14th is a good finish. I think that's where Millwall fans would expect to be. Have a flirt with the playoffs towards the end, which, I mean, they've still got a chance of 6 points off it, but with 9 games to go, the away games in particular look very difficult. So anywhere in that sort of level, not being dragged into the relegation fight, I think is what they would expect.
Yeah. Well, it's always that club who are hanging around mid-table and win their last 4 games and end up going up, usually with the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the club that done it a couple of years ago, I can't remember who it was now. But they stormed up and Barnsley, I think they stormed into the playoffs. They didn't win them, but they stormed in. They won 7 or 8 games in a row and stormed into the playoffs. I think they were beaten in the semi-finals, but it does just show it's at this stage of the season. It's getting that bit of momentum, and and it's so key.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back onto that because I wanted to touch back onto the ambition thing because when I was looking, I was going to go back to the summer because I have to admit that I was surprised to see Zian Fleming, who I thought was a good player at Millwall. He was a good signing, always looked like a decent player, but I thought he might step up to the Premier League with a bottom half Premier League side and maybe a newly promoted club. But he went on loan to Burnley for a year, which, for an outsider like me looking at that, seemed like an odd deal, especially on transfer deadline day.
Yeah, it was one that had been rumbling throughout the summer because the club had turned down bids the previous summer when Burnley had got promoted. They turned down the bids because they didn't match their valuation of Zian. But it was coming into the last year of his contract this year, so they knew he very unlikely he'd sign a new one. And they got a decent fee for him. It's an obligation to buy from Burnley, so they got a good deal out of it. It's a player in the last year of his contract. So in previous times, the club had just let players like that leave, on a free at the end. I mean, you think back to Jed Wallace, a player that left on a free transfer, who really you could have got a lot of money for if they'd sold him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, going back to the start of the season, starting off with Neil Harris in charge, who, of course, been a player there, and that was his second stint as manager. And he came back in February from Cambridge United, but that lasted until early December when the official was, kind of wording was that he decided to step down. They were 13th in the league, but again, reading the background, he'd seemed to have a bit of a run-in with the fans. So how did all that play out?
Yeah, so Neil came back after Joe Edwards left. Just disastrous reign from Joe Edwards. He was appointed in the November. He made quite an impact actually because he won his first game 4-0 away at Sheffield Wednesday, and it just didn't go to plan. He didn't have the players to play the system he wanted to play, and he was a bit out of his depth, I think was probably the fairest thing to say about him. Absolutely lovely guy, really, really good with the media. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And really, the club turned to the only person they could turn to in that sort of period of time. If you ask Neil, he's never going to say no to Millwall. It's his football club, isn't it? So he's never going to say no to helping the club out. And he came in at a key time. The plan was always for him to leave at the end of this season anyway, because he only signed an 18-month contract. So the plan really was that he would have stepped down at the end of this season. There was a bit of disagreement, not necessarily with the fan base. It was more with the board. In the summer, there was a lot of frustration that he didn't get the players in that he wanted for the start of the season. I think back to some of his comments after the likes of the Watford defeat, the Bristol City defeat, where we lost it right at the end. And he didn't have the squad depth. He finally got the players in towards the end of the window, and things were going quite well. We had a run of, I think it was 3 1-0 wins in a row. The third of them was beating Leeds, and it took us up to 5th, I think it was, in the table. And then, I suppose there was conversations about what the plans were for January and this, that, and the other thing, and they just didn't agree between the board and him. He's the type of character who likes to be in control. It was different for him in his first reign because he was a manager. He controlled every aspect of how the club functioned. Obviously now it's a bit different. The way James Berylson runs things is a lot different to how his dad did it. So there was structural changes last summer. Steve Cavner, the long-serving chief executive, left the club. So those changes, I think, might have just maybe what he wasn't prepared for, or it wasn't what he signed up for. But he left on good terms with the fan base anyway. He got a nice send-off in the game up at Borough right at the end. So, yeah, he'll always be a club legend. And I think that's part of the reason why he decided to go. Because he didn't want his relationship with the fans to suffer. And he always said when he came back that it would be that he would go when he felt the time was right. And I think, yeah, he didn't want to sever his relation, so he made that decision.
Yeah, he's always a good signing on Championship Manager 2001, 2002 for people who are as old as I am, but that's a different story. It was interesting listening to you there because obviously the man chosen to replace him is very familiar to ourselves, being the man who got us promoted and then promptly buggered off to Stoke when he was offered a bit of cash. And I mean, just for starters on that, how did that appointment go down with the fans, and what other names were being thrown around at the time?
I think it was one where it was considered a safe appointment. I don't think it was one that was going to get fans off their seats. In terms of, you're going to play the most attractive football in the world. But I thought when he came in, I thought it's a good, solid Championship appointment. It reminded me a lot of the Gary Rowett appointment. A man that can definitely galvanise a team, can lead a team, and can get a team playing well at Championship level, can build a team. I think back to his Preston days where he spent quite a while there. He built up a decent team on a modest budget and sold on the players to different clubs and stuff like that. But he always kept them quite competitive, I felt, for the majority of the time. And there was, him and Matt Bloomfield of Wickham. He's gone to Luton since, but he was touted as well. And I'm glad they took the Alex Neil route rather than the Matt Bloomfield route. I think the Bloomfield one would have been a big risk. I think, like you're seeing at Luton now, I think it would have been a really big risk to go there. And Alex Neil, I think, look, he's a good coach. He's done a good job wherever he's been, other than Stoke. But what manager does well at Stoke? Yeah, it's a poison chalice job, isn't it? Even if you look at Mark Robbins now, it's such a hard club to manage. I don't think they could offer me enough money to manage Stoke. It's not even a nice place. You know what I mean? It's cold, it's windy. Oh no, it's horrible. Anything about Stoke, I just don't like.
The famous Tuesday night, a cold Tuesday night in Stoke. But actually, it was interesting to hear you talk about Harris having trouble with the structure above him, because that was one of the things with Sunderland. The rumours was that, as much as it was down to money, was that you know, he had a recruitment team above him and he liked to be the manager. Has there been any talk of that?
No, not really. So he obviously was interviewed and everything like that based on the project that the club have. I think the key thing for him maybe was the bit where you could evolve the style of play, which is what he will look to do. I mean, if you look at how we were under Neil Harris to what an Alex Neil team would be, you've got big differences there. You know, you look at an Alex Neil team like to play with the ball, you know, pass the ball around, and that's not something that you're used to at Millwall, for instance. You know, you go back to the Harris days, you go back to the Rowett days. Not usually possession-based team. They play to their strengths because that's what they've always had to do, because they haven't necessarily had the budget to do that type of football, you know, being able to play through the thirds and all that sort of stuff. But I think with the way football's moving and the amount of the amount that transfers are now for players that you can develop. I mean, if you look at some of the players the club have brought in, the likes of Ivanovic, Negley, you know, they're all players that can be developed and then sold on for decent money, which will allow you to then rebuild the team further. And I always thought that he would like a project. You know, if you looked at Preston, that was a project, and even Sunderland. He went into Sunderland, and I would have thought that after getting them promoted, he then would have wanted to build a championship team enough to then try and get promoted to the Premier League. So the Stoke one, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll just say the less about Stoke the better. And then so it's. I think it's a good appointment. It's a good appointment for the club. And it's a good appointment for a manager who perhaps maybe after Stoke, a bit like when Gary came after Stoke, needed to rebuild his reputation in football. And I think it will only benefit him at Millwall because he'll have the chance to improve a team and improve a club. And it will work both ways because the club will improve and his reputation will continue to grow. You know, I do think he's a solid coach, and I think we'll see that.
Yeah, well, he does like a project until he's offered more money at another project. I think it kind of sums Alex Neil up. But looking at the results that they've got under Alex Neil, I think just looking at them, they just look inconsistent since he was appointed. And I was looking at they went 6 league games without a win just after Christmas and then into January. Was there some grumblings back then? Because that was quite early on.
Yeah, so just after Christmas, so Dave Livermore was in charge so Harris left after Middlesbrough, then Dave Livermore had 3 games in charge, I think it was, Blackburn, Norwich and Coventry. Beat Blackburn, lost at Norwich and drew Coventry. Here, I think, if I'm right in saying, Alex Neil's first game in charge was at home to Oxford.
Yeah.
Which was Gary Rowett returning to the den as well. So, and Oxford won that one 1-0. I think a few were worried, but, you know, in terms of, because it did take him a while to get going. You know, we did the defeat to Oxford, then there was a draw at Sheffield Wednesday, another defeat, I think it was to Hull.
Yeah, Hull, then Cardiff, and then a draw against Cardiff.
Yeah, and a draw against Cardiff when we were 2-0 up in that game and should have seen it out, conceded right at the death. I think a few were concerned, but also thought in January, if you can give him the recruits, he'll get them playing. And, you know, since then they've pulled away. I mean, they've picked up some decent results since then and pulled away from it now. So I think many are quite looking forward to see what he can do over the course of a summer and really just building for next season now.
Yeah, well, that window would have been the first kind of 4 weeks of his time at Millwall. Yeah. But kind of tell us about the January window and how kind of Millwall went about it, because it sounds like they did a lot of business.
Yeah, so I think it was 8 permanent signings came through the door, which is unusual for Millwall in a January window to make any permanent signings, really. They generally tend to make loans. It's notoriously, of course, a difficult window to bring players in. I mean, if you look at the players that they did bring in, they brought in Camille Negley, new club record signing. I think they did open negotiations with Borough for Josh Coburn on a permanent deal. I think that's one they'll probably revisit come the summer. But I mean, to bring 8 permanent signings in, I mean, they did let Tom Bradshaw go to Oxford. So he reunited up with Gary there. But again, that was another player that was at the end of his contract, where they got a bit of money for him, which probably they wouldn't have got under the old regime. So, no, generally they've used it to build. If you look at the players that came in, it's a build-in window. They brought in Tristan Kramer. It's a bit of a tongue twister, that, from Brentford. And he's slotted in perfectly since he came in. He's been playing at right back, funny enough, because we haven't got a fit, recognised right back currently. So he's been playing there, and he's done a really good job since he came in. And then they were very, very key to hold on to some of the key players they had, like Japhet Tanganga. They turned down a bid from Sheffield United for him because they believe they need to keep their best players. If they want to build and they want to do something, then you do have to keep the players that you have. I mean, they weren't under pressure to sell, so maybe come the summer, if there is interest in him and they get a decent fee, then possibly you'd be looking at them. Maybe they'll let him go, but they were determined to keep hold of him to see what could happen in the second half of the season, because you just don't know, do you?
Yeah, that's it. And I was looking more recently, especially like after that January transfer window, I've seen that they've won 6 and lost 3 of the last 12. And I was going to ask about Alex Neil because when he was at Sunderland, he didn't seem to have a set plan of playing. He seemed to always twig things based on the opposition. And he said there was certain, he wouldn't stick with the same formation, same starting 11. I mean, is that how he is at Millwall, or is he stuck with one way to set up?
No, so he does tend to switch. His first game in charge, he played with 2 strikers. Generally, he's played 4-2-3-1. But, if he's seen different opposition, if you think back to Palace away in the FA Cup, tweaked that at half time. He went to a 5 at the back. He played with 2 up front in the, it was the game he played before the international break. He played with 2 up front in that.
Seems like such a long time ago.
Now. Yeah, it does. Who was it? Oh my God, who was
Stoke
it?
City.
1-0. Stoke, yeah.
Yep.
So against Stoke,
we've been talking about them.
Yeah.
Forget them easily.
Yeah. So he played with 2 strikers in that one. Generally, I think he looks at the opposition and then bases it on that. A key player maybe that's made a bit of a resurgence under him will be someone like Billy Mitchell, if I can get the word up. He's someone who's a typical Alex Neil player in terms of, can hold the ball well, pass the ball well, bits like that. He's someone I think who will feature quite prominently under Alex Neil, more so than maybe someone like George Saville, who's a bit less of a ball carrier, a bit less of a ball protector, a bit more full-blooded type player. So, yeah, and someone like Casper Denore as well, that played really well under Alex Neil. Has made that him and Billy Mitchell in that partnership, I think, is probably going to be a very key one for how he wants the team to play.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking again at like Millwall stats for the season, the glaring one that sticks out is goals or lack of goals. Only 17 scored in 19 games away from home. And in total, I think only Luton Town have scored fewer goals. But obviously to do that and to be where they are, they've got the 6th best defensive record. I mean, is that more to do with the players that they've got, or is it the way they set up?
If you look back to when Harris was in charge, he obviously, look, we're going to be strong defensively and we'll get what we get going forward. And you've got a very, very good centre-half partnership in Cooper and Tanganga. Very, very good. The whole back four really are quite solid. Don't give away much. And they will literally put their bodies on the line. They set up really to make sure that they don't concede many. It's as simple as that, because they know going forward, particularly at the start of the season, didn't have much up there at all. Very light at the top end of the pitch. Didn't really have someone who could create an awful lot. Following the loss of Fleming, who would have been that natural 10, don't really have a natural 10 now. They've had a few, maybe like Femi Aziz has done well since he's come in. Lost SA in January, so obviously got decent money for him, but lost one of the big creative forces. They brought players in to replace it and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see next season how the style of play changes. But I think if you look, since Alex Neil came in, obviously first thing he needed to do was steady the ship and make sure that they moved away from the drop zone and everything like that. So when you've got a good defensive partnership anyway, and in Cooper and Tanganga, you're not going to concede too many chances. And I think Lukashenko's got 12 clean sheets as well. So generally, very, very good defensively. But because of the lack of attacking threat, obviously you've got to be more solid at the back.
Yeah. And in terms of some of those attacking players, three of those are very familiar to Sunderland fans. You've got George Honeyman, Duncan Watmore, and more recently, Aaron Connolly. How are those three getting on in Millwall?
Aaron Connolly, he came in January. He's looked good since he came in. He scored against QPR, I think it was, which was Alex Neil's first home win in charge. He came on, funny enough, for his debut at Luton as a substitute after someone got injured. And he came on and he took the penalty. Oh, my God. Oh, dear. Got too excited, I think. It was like, right, it's a great chance for me to get going. Took it off the mark. Oh, and the penalty, my God. But to be fair to him, since then, he's knuckled down. He did have an injury, which kept him out for a few games. But do you know what? He's come back and he's looked good. He's looked sharp. It was only a deal till the end of the season. So, again, he's going to be playing to try and earn a deal going forward. George Honeyman, I think he's one who can frustrate fans. I think George Honeyman. One thing you cannot question is his effort, his passion, and his determination. You just cannot question that. He would do anything for his teammates, for his club, and everything like that. I think it's just, where was it? QPR away, I think, earlier in the season, and it looked harder to miss. And he managed to miss from about 1 yard out. And he did score the following game, funny enough. But look, he's someone who at a club you need. He's a leader. He's someone who can really get a team riled. His end product does leave a bit to be desired. But he's a top quality guy as well. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a few times, and he is a really, really nice guy. He's got great passion, great loyalty. If you look at wherever he's been, Hull, Sunderland, I think he's been captain at both.
Yeah.
So, you can see what type of player he is. Duncan Watmore started the season on fire. He scored 3 in 2, I think, at the start of the season. Scored against Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think he scored. Oh, no, he scored at QPR and then he hasn't scored since. But again, look, he's someone who has served the club well, I think, since he's been there. I'm not sure maybe how much longer he'll be there in terms, a bit like George Honeyman as well, in terms of the players that have come in now, where he's going to stand in the pecking order, and he may well decide, look, that he wants to go play on a regular basis, which every footballer wants to do. But no, I mean, I've got a lot of time for all three of those players. They've all done well and they've all served the club and they've done what's been asked of them. So you can't fault them for that.
Yeah, I think Duncan Watmore's just doing well to still be in the Championship after all the injuries he's had, especially at Sunderland.
Yeah, do you know, he's suffered a few here as well. Yeah, you do feel sorry for him in terms of the injuries that he's had in his career as well. Yeah. Rotten luck.
Yeah, that's it. And just going back to that point about Alex Neil setting up differently. I mean, from a journalist who tries to cover Millwall and tries to second guess the manager, I mean, what do you think he's got lined up for Sunderland?
Good question. Again, look, it's how we play away from home can be a lot different. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't surprise me, that he'll try and soak up as much pressure as possible, because that's the strength of Millwall's, is to really soak up pressure and then hit teams on the break. And it really wouldn't surprise me if that's what he tried to do again. Sunderland, you go there, look, all the pressure's on Sunderland to win the game because they're the home team. They look very solid in those playoff places now. Of course they do. I mean, I think the top two is probably out of reach now, in terms of that points difference. I think is quite a lot to make up, and they look very comfortable in the playoff places. So the only thing you can hope, maybe they're feeling a bit on the beat, a bit secure, and you can hit them on the break. I mean, but again, being the home team, Sunderland, they're going to be required to break a good defensive team down. And I think that's what he'll do. I think he'll go there to sit and frustrate and then hit on the counter, because that's what we've been very effective at.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly before we specifically talk about the game again, I was just recent events with Millwall and things Alex Neil's had to deal with. The Liam Roberts challenge on Matete at Crystal Palace in the Cup. I mean, even though, it was a bad challenge, everyone's kind of seen it. And I saw Alex Neil desperately trying to put it behind them and draw a line under it. But were you surprised at how long that rumbled on for?
It rumbled on far too long.
Yeah.
Far too long. Listen, look, the challenge was a bad challenge. Of course it was. And Liam knows that. His team know that. And look, he has to deal with the consequences of that. I still personally think the 6-game ban was harsh. I don't think it warranted a 6-game ban. If you look at it, he's got no intention to hurt the player. He's come out in the first 6 minutes of a very hyped up atmosphere as well. There's no way he's going to come out and try and put his team in trouble 6 minutes into a game. And I feel for him personally because of the abuse and the things he's been subjected to. I mean, even from ex-players as well and people high within the game, some of the stuff that's been labelled to him has been awful. I mean, I listened to the podcast of the Daily Mail, but with Chris Sutton, and some of the things he said on there were absolutely, awful. I mean, you can't question a player's character like that, in my opinion. And and there's no way that he'd go onto the pitch with the intention to do that. So it rumbled on far too long. And I think the media's coverage of it was poor. There's no thought for the player, his family, or anything like that. And I'm glad to see that JP is okay. Because of course, look, your first concern in anything like that is that the player's okay, and thankfully he was. And he's even come out and said, look, that he got a message from Liam Roberts after the game, and he apologised and everything like that. And I believe that our chairman and Alex Neil both went and saw him as well to make sure that he was okay. And yeah, I think he got perhaps given a lot more grief because of the club he plays for rather than the offence itself. I think back to Sadio Mane a few years ago, who done a very similar challenge, if not worse, and got a 3-game ban. So yeah, I think it rumbled on too long, and now it can be put behind him, and he'll be back on the bench soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I wonder if the German keeper in the 80s, Schumacher, when he knocked out a player in the European Championships, if he did that in the age of social media, I think he would have never played football again. I don't think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it was of that level.
No,
I don't think it was of that level at all. It's a genuine. He's mistimed it, and yeah, it's an unfortunate chain of events. Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, just quickly again before we finish off with the game. Just from an outsider's point of view, looking at Sunderland, we are the side who's tried to keep up with the 3 parachute payment teams at the top, Leeds, Sheffield United and Burnley, who've spent ridiculous amounts of money compared to the rest of the division. I mean, we appointed a relatively unknown Frenchman as manager at the start of the season, didn't do particularly well last season. I mean, have we surprised a few people this season, do you think?
I was quite surprised with the appointment, I have to say. I remember the game, the end of last season, where we won 1-0, and that pretty much secured our safety for another season. It's like your season pretty much died a death, hadn't it, at that stage. I think Mike Dodds was in charge as well. So seeing from where they were last year to where they are now, I think it surprised me. I didn't think they would be up there this year, particularly because of the age of the squad as well. I mean, the age of the squad is very young, isn't it? So, I mean, they've got a lot of young players in there, and there was a lot to learn with a new man coming in. So, and considering, the money that those other 3 have spent, to have kept pace with them for as long as that, I think is a job well done, and I think Sunderland, look, if it doesn't happen this year, then again, they've got a lot of potential and a lot of stuff to go again next year.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. But we've only met 4 times in the league at the Stadium of Light. The game back in November 2017 sticks out in my memory because it was possibly the worst display of goalkeeping from either teams. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I remember that. George Saville's 2 free kicks.
Yeah.
And Jordan Archer in goal. My good God, for Millwall.
Yeah. And you know what? The Sunderland goalkeeper, I can't even remember his name right now. But anyway, that's why I've tried to wipe it from my mind. But like you said last time,
they were shocking from both keepers that day.
Awful. And like you said, the one last time out, that was Millwall's first win at the Stadium Light since 2003. And Millwall have won 2 of their last 3 away from home. So are Millwall fans travelling north with a bit of confidence?
Yeah, I think they will do. I mean, Alex Neil's record has been better away from home than it has been at home. So I think they would feel confident going there knowing that they're not going to sit there and concede that many goals. So they know they're going to be solid, and they know they're going to be a threat on the break. Sunderland will have to open them up, So, and the onus will be on them to do that. I think they'll be confident they can come away with something. Because it's a long way to go and get nothing. So I think they'll be confident they can come away with a point, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, funny that I think it's going to be a draw as well, based on what you've said, because Sunderland aren't very good this season against a low block, against a side who digs in and tries to catch them on the break. We really don't like trying to break sides down. So I wouldn't be surprised if you were right on that. But just in terms of Millwall, 6-point gap, 8 games to go. Do you think there's a possibility they might make a late push for the top 6?
There's a possibility. You can never write it off. But the away games are awful. I mean, just had Leeds, Sunderland, Sheffield United, Blackburn, and Burnley. So, if they manage to get in there, they're going to deserve it after that run, because it's a tough run of fixtures, but they'll be the underdog. And if there's anything that we thrive at as a club, it is being the underdog.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, you're going to play a big part in who goes up with our top 2 then.
Yes, yeah. Burnley away on the last day. Yeah, because that could be a decider. You never know, do you? Because those 3 are very close. Burnley just don't concede goals, do they? So
it's ridiculous.
I mean, we scored 1 against them. Jake Cooper's header. I think we were the last team to beat them. I don't think they've lost in the league since we beat them.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So yeah, it's you just never know. You never know. I'm sure they'll give it a go, and I don't think Alex Neil will let them, just accept that the season's done, because at 6 points you've still got a decent chance.
Yeah. Are you travelling up for the game out of interest?
No, I'm not. Train fares up to Sunderland are crazy.
Train fares anywhere.
Well, yeah, generally. And I've never been to the stadium a night. So it's one that I do want to go. For me, it's got to be one of those sort of early away days that you do early in the season, maybe sort of an August, September away day when the weather's a bit nicer.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be going up to Sunderland in the freezing cold. Us in the south don't do very well up in the north when it's freezing cold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from all your travels in the Championship, he's an important question, because we're going to throw this out to journalists across the country. What's left of this season and next season? Who puts on the best food in the Championship, do you reckon?
Oh, that's a good question. Now you're asking. We don't do bad at Millwall with food, actually. They don't do too bad. The worst, I think, the worst has got to be Watford, I think. Cool. That's got to be the worst I've had, especially this season. Last year, the best we had was Southampton, I think it was. I'm not sure, this year. QPR was all right. It just depends what you like, doesn't it? It really depends, like if you like a snack or if you like a full-blown meal. I mean, I do like the food that you get at Millwall. You get a shepherd's pie or a lasagna, bangers and mash,
proper spread.
Yeah, you do. You do get a proper hot meal at Millwall, which is really, really nice. So, do you know what? I'm going to go with Millwall. I think they do some really nice food. Pie and mash as well.
Of course, has to be in there, doesn't it? Pie and mash.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll save the toughest question till last. So
that was a tough one.
So,
do you know, there's a former colleague actually who covers Ipswich now, and he puts on every game. He puts on what the media food is and rates it. And yeah, it's fascinating. But yeah, no. It's a hard question, that one.
Well, this is something I'm trying to get off the ground this season. There should be an away games food league table, I think, in the Championship.
Do you know what? I mean, you're right. You're right.
See how it goes. But on that note, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure, and all the best for the season ahead, mate.
Thank you very much, and to you.
Good stuff. Nice one. Thanks again, Alex. And thanks again, everyone listening. Keep a look at Roker Report for all the build-up ahead of the game against Millwall at the weekend, and keep an eye out in all the usual places for the next pod that should be dropping very soon. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.